All right, so we're now recording. We're going to get started. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning to everyone. My name is Dr. Henry Henderson, and I am the co-founder of Black in Cancer. We are celebrating this week the FDA's Black Cancer Family Awareness Week, and this week is all about educating our family, our community, about the importance of reducing cancer risk, the importance of staying healthy, having a balanced diet, and overall being well overall. And so I would like to thank you for joining us. We have a really exciting conversation today. I have with me LaTrice Love, and I'll give you her brief introduction right now. I'm going to share my screen for accessibility. LaTrice Love is a native of Mobile, Alabama. She is currently a resident of Columbus, Georgia. She graduated from Auburn University, where she earned a Bachelor in Science degree in nutrition with a concentration in wellness, and she completed her dietetic internship with Be Well Solutions Dietetic Internship Program. LaTrice is employed with the Columbus Health Department of Columbus, Georgia, as a dietitian for Georgia's Supplemental Nutrition Program for Women, Infants, and Children, that are known as WIC. LaTrice's passion for serving the community and empowering others to live their healthier lives led her to begin her first small business, Prep with Love, and we'll have a conversation about that later. When this self-proclaimed chef is not cooking or counseling, she can be found running as she serves as an ambassador for the local Columbus, Georgia Black Girls Run Group. She also enjoys spending time with her family and friends, which are an essential part of her life. And so I just really want to say thank you, LaTrice, for joining us. We're so happy to have you, and just welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, anytime. One of the things that we wanted to do when we were planning the week was we have to get us somebody who knows about food, because we love to eat, and as a culture, we cook in every event, right?
Right.
But one of the things that we don't think about is how the things that we eat affect our health. And so for Black people specifically, some diets and some foods, make us prone to hypertension, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and even cancer. And so I really wanted to bring you in to kind of give us an outlook of what a well-balanced, healthy diet. And I don't like using the word healthy, right? I like using the word well-balanced, because healthy may look different for someone else. And so having a well-balanced diet, what that looks like and how we can improve our overall diet. And so I just kind of want to begin with, what exactly is a dietitian? Is it different from a nutritionist? So what is that?
Great question, Henry, and I'm glad you asked, because even when I was going through my dietetic internship, and I would tell people, oh, I am becoming a registered dietitian. They're like, what? What's that? So a registered dietitian is someone who is a food and nutrition expert. In order to become a dietitian, you have to complete a bachelor's degree in nutrition or do the approved coursework by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Then once you are eligible for the supervised provision, which we call a dietetic internship, you have to complete a minimum of 1,200 hours. So in these 1,200 hours, they're supervised, you're with dietitians, and we do them in various areas. So you will do hours in community settings. So community settings would include health departments, anything that serves the community in like a public health area. Then you would do your clinical. Most internships are clinical based, so you would do majority of your hours in clinical, and that will be in your acute care, your long-term care, your dialysis centers, because dietitians, we are making sure that you are getting the nutrients you need. So for example, if someone's on a tube feed, the dietitians would calculate that. And then also we do our hours in food service. So food service includes school nutrition, that will include the food functioning within those same hospitals. Then after completing those hours, which are very long, internships can range between 6 months to a year, just depending if you're doing full-time or part-time. And then we take our national exam, which allows us to become licensed. And then once you're registered and licensed, we work in a various of settings. As mentioned in my bio, I work for the Georgia WIC program. So I provide nutrition counseling in the community setting. But of course, dietitians are found in long-term care, hospitals, school nutrition directors, even specialties in oncology. So I know we're here for cancer. So you will find dietitians in those centers, private practice, sports teams, universities, anywhere that there are people and there's health and there is a concern with food, you will find a dietitian. I mean, one of the things also I want to share, since we are focusing on Black and cancer, a statistic with dietitians, there are less than 3% of African Americans in the field. So any opportunity to come on and share about a dietitian and make us more aware, so there can become more Black practitioners as dietitians.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that's kind of daunting, but it's not surprising that there's such a low number of representation within the field. And we know from a cancer standpoint, when we see people like us within the clinic or within the labs, we trust them, we trust what they say. And so having representation specifically when it comes to Black women in a field where nutrition is important, that's a really important thing we need to think about when we want to recruit people to join your field, because I think you're the only nutritionist or dietitian that I know. So yeah, that says a lot. So moving on to the next question, what is an example, or what is a well-balanced diet? I know people talk about eating clean or eating healthy. What exactly does that look like from your standpoint? Like, what is the technical balanced diet?
So, from I guess a technical standpoint, a well-balanced diet will be a diet that is rich in nutrient-dense foods. So your nutrient-dense foods will be foods that provide your body with nutrients, so vitamins and minerals, limiting saturated fat, and those are the fats that come from our animal products, and making sure that you're getting a variety of fruits and vegetables, whole grains, low-fat dairy, lean meats, beans, drinking water, and then limiting those processed foods. And I know, Henry, you mentioned earlier we may talk about processed foods at some point. So making sure that you're getting more of those foods that aren't as, what's the word I'm looking for? More of those fruits and vegetables, whole grains, protein.
Got you. Yeah, and so speaking of processed foods, from a cancer standpoint, we know that increased numbers or increased amount of processed foods and red meats, sugary drinks, increases our chances of developing certain types of cancer, specifically colorectal, which in the Black population, we're getting diagnosed younger and younger. And so that's an important issue that we are raising now. So what's the difference between whole foods and processed foods? Because to me, Cheetos may be considered a whole food because it has whole ingredients, right? But would that be processed?
So with processed foods and whole foods, there are different levels to it. So a food that has been cooked, that has been canned, that has been frozen, that has been packaged, there was some type of process to it. Even when you are getting your milk and your juices, the fortification of adding the calcium and the vitamin D makes it processed. But we have to be in mind if it's minimally processed or heavily processed. So some foods that will be positive, looking at it in a positive way, will be those minimally processed foods, which will be your vitamin D and your calcium that's added to milk and juice. But then more of those heavy processed foods will be your prepackaged meals. So your frozen dinners, the things that have more sodium in it, that can lead to those negative effects. So when it comes to process, looking to see how that food was made. So if it's fortified, or if it's a TV dinner or a microwave meal that is full of sodium, so the processing was different. And then comparing to whole foods will be what we consider fruits and vegetables, things that come straight from the ground. There was nothing done to it. But also keep in mind, with that spinach just in that bag, it was processed, it was washed to put into the bag. It's still processed, but it's still a better choice. So just knowing how the food was processed before you eat it.
That's an excellent explanation. And one of the things I do is check nutrition labels. Yeah. And so when I'm in the store, and it's because I'm just really health conscious, but I'm in the store, I read the nutrition labels, but some people just don't know what to look for on a nutrition label. What are some things that we can look for to be like, hey, this is a great choice, hey, this is a not so great choice when we're looking at a nutrition label?
And with the nutrition label, it can be overwhelming because, of course, you hear, oh, how many calories in it? I'm watching my calories, like, well, how many calories do I need? And, of course, our calorie intake is different depending on our bodies. So, Henry, our calorie intake wouldn't be the same. You're a man, I'm a woman, your height, your weight, your age, your physical activity, but knowing some of the simple things to look at when you look at the label. So, of course, the portion size, the serving size. So, for example, if the serving is 1 cup and then you can get 8 cups out of there, ideally you wouldn't want to eat the entire container. You want to pay attention to that portion size. And on the nutrition facts label, the serving size is the label is created for one serving. So it's telling you if an item has 10 grams of fat in it, then that will come from that 1 cup that you ate. So if you ate 2 cups, then you're eating 20 grams of fat. So just paying attention to your serving size, the total amount that serving gives you, and then looking at the amount. So with saturated fat, you want to look for items that are less in saturated fat, your trans fat, because those are the fats that aren't as heart healthy. And also looking at the amount of sodium. And these are just some key points to look at when looking at the label. So you want to ideally get the smaller the number, the better, especially when looking at sodium and saturated fat, depending on what the food item is. But then some of the positive things of the label when you're looking, like, oh, okay, this food is high in fiber, because we know we need fiber to help us keep our bowels regular. And then looking at the amount of your daily percent value, so the amount of vitamins in it. And the key thing to remember with the label is servings matter, so the portions matter. And I know sometimes we're mindlessly just eating, not paying attention to how much I should eat, but looking at that label, so okay, my portion, I should eat a cup, or if it says 15 crackers or chips or whatever it is that you're eating, just paying attention to how much you're eating in that setting.
Yeah, that's a thank you for that, because when we eat things, I think we believe it's so good, we just don't want to stop. But and looking at the nutrition label is really important to understand the amount of servings per container, because it's really easy to see 310 calories for a bag of chips, but that's literally 16 chips, and so there are probably more than that in the bag. So
Right.
being aware and conscious of that specific detail in the label is really important. So when we're thinking about all of these wonderful snacks that we eat, one of the things I really love to indulge in is cookies. I really love cookies, and I don't think I'll ever get rid of them, right? And even TV dinners, right? They're really quick and easy to grab, and we don't have to cook. So what are some alternatives that we can do, but still keep our favorite foods within that? So if I wanted to eat chips every day, what can I do to substitute some of those habits?
Right, and I just saw someone pop up in the chat box saying, I think it said fatty foods are good. So of course, you mentioned you like sweets. I love sweets. Like I enjoy a chocolate chip cookie or a slice of red velvet cake. But I also know that I have to find a balance. So with finding alternatives, first, I think as a dietitian, when it comes to educating, is letting you know, well, if you do eat the cookies every day, being realistic with you and letting you know the health outcomes, what will happen if we eat cookies every day. But also saying it's okay to eat the cookie, because a lot of times when we are limiting ourselves and restricting ourselves and we're telling ourselves no, we can't have something, then that's when you're more likely like, okay, you know what, I'm gonna go eat all the cookies because she told me I can't have the cookies. But letting you know, like, hey, I can have a cookie, but knowing that I can still be healthy, but knowing alternatives. So yes, I might eat the cookie on Monday, but an alternative or a snack would be maybe the next day I'm having that sweet tooth and I want my apple and my peanut butter. And then with snacks, when it comes to, listen to your body, because you might need a meal. You actually may be hungry, so that sometimes we end up mindlessly snacking. And then if it is time for a snack, making sure you're pairing your snacks. So if you do your apple, that will be your carbohydrate. And then if you did maybe some nut butter, almond butter, peanut butter, you're pairing it with a protein. Because when you pair your proteins and your snacks, you're more likely to feel full. You're feeling satisfied. So that way you won't mindlessly just eat the bag of chips. So just making sure that you're doing like a carb and a protein, or a carb and a healthy fat. So you could do like a turkey roll up with a slice of cheese. You could do fruit and popcorn. I love Skinny Pop, the Boom Chicka Pop, cheddar corn, because it still gives me that sweet. Then I'll do like almonds. So just knowing that when you have your snacks, making sure to pair them so they keep you feeling full, and listen to your body so you won't restrict anything and then you end up binge eating or having a bad relationship with food. And a lot of people, we do, because we see society and culture like, oh, don't eat that. But if you tell yourself you can have something, but no, okay, I need to eat this apple too for those fruits and vegetables.
That's interesting, because when you say listen to your body, my body says eat all the time. So nice to have that suggestion. And so, how often or should we consider switching out sugary stuff for sugar-free things. So, for instance, salad dressing. I use Skinny Girl salad dressing. I'm not ashamed to say that because it doesn't have fat, it doesn't have sugar, it's like calorie-free. But it's really, really good. And that's the balsamic vinaigrette, so I'm going to plug that just in case y'all want to go to Publix and pick it up. But how often should we consider switching out things that are high in sugar for sugar-free options, like sweet tea, for example? That's a staple in Southern culture. And so we're from the South, we have sweet tea at everything. But how important is us to kind of limit our intake on those sugary drinks and on those sugar-filled products?
Right, and also another one, a big one you said was the salad dressing, knowing that I can have my salad dressing, but should I have it with my salad twice a day, every day, all day? And one of the things in the field that was kind of confusing to me, even as a student, is, okay, moderation. Well, what does moderation look like? Is moderation once a day, 3 times a day? If I'm at eating it multiple times a day, how do I decrease that? So I will first say take a small step, because right now, if you are using your ranch dressing and you eat 2 salads a day, you're like, hey, I'm eating a salad, and you're eating a salad every day. Let's go from using it twice a day to once a day. Then go from, okay, it's 7 days in a week, let me use this maybe 2 to 3 times a week. So just making those small changes. And now when you're more aware of the type of fat or how much sugar is in a product, then you may try something. So being open to trying a balsamic vinaigrette versus your creamy ranch every day.
Yeah, that's really hard to do. So that brings us to my next question is, like, should we have people to hold us accountable, right? So what steps can we take? And you've mentioned some, but what steps should we take to make these changes? And should we have someone to hold us accountable, or should we just decide to do this all on our own? Because trying to switch something that you eat every day, it's really, really hard. So should we have friends, and should we include our friends on our journey? And how important is it for us to really hone in on those habits and keep them going?
Yes, you should definitely have a friend, a family member, get you a dietitian to help you, and start where you are. Because we don't want to set the goal too big and say, okay, I'm going to completely eliminate sugar. Like I said earlier, that's going to cause you to consume more sugar. But having an accountability partner, setting those small goals, because we're more likely to achieve our nutrition goals when we start small. So if our goal is to drink more water, making sure you equip yourself and having someone accountable to help you with the tools you need. So for example, I drink water, but I know when some people, when it comes to drinking water, I'll say, hey, get a water bottle and start small. So you might need to get the water bottle that says, the marks on there, and then say, hey, today I'm going to drink half of this. So if I can drink half of this for the next few days, then I'll increase it to the full cup. So, and then including those people in your life, so your family members, and then the people, if you live with other people, say, hey, we're making this lifestyle change together. So that way you don't have to feel like you're cooking a meal for them, then a meal for yourself, but making some compromises to help each other along the way. And also affirm yourself. Say, good job. Like, hey, I drank a half a cup of water today. Before, I wasn't drinking any water. And then just being mindful. So when you're aware of, hey, I don't drink any water, like my face is dry, my skin, my hair. So you're aware of the effects that it has on your body. So that's why it's important to bring those other people in. Talk to your doctor, talk to your dietitian, so you can improve in your nutrition.
Right. And I'm going to take a question, and I'll actually answer it from the chat. It says, should Black men be eating less chicken? And so one of the things that we know is that portion control is really important. That comes with anything. And like LaTrice was saying, everything in moderation, right? But when we think about the development of certain cancers like colorectal, for instance, Black men are at a higher risk than most populations. We want to think about how we prepare that chicken, right? So charbroiling and broiling and barbecuing may not be the best. But when we think about baking and using oils that are less in fat and trans fat, will be a better idea to prepare that chicken. So not eating less, right? But just not overdoing it in certain aspects. And so speaking of chicken,
I was say, can I add something to that, Henry, about the chicken? Yeah, so like you mentioned, how you're preparing it and the seasonings that you're using. So when you're using like your herbs and the different things, limiting that salt. So it's really not necessarily the chicken because that's a lean protein. And when it comes to your meats and you're choosing your proteins, you want to do those lean proteins. So with the chicken, taking off the skin, taking off the fat. When you're getting your ground turkey or your beef, choosing the one that is higher, the number from the lean, and has less of the fat that's in it.
So are there types of seasonings that we can get that are salt free?
Yes, so you want to go more for your spices and your herbs. So your garlic powder. So there's garlic powder, there's garlic salt. So the garlic powder doesn't have any salt in it, but of course your garlic salt does. If you go for your same thing with onion powder. So onion powder versus onion salt, you will want to ideally choose the onion powder. And then, especially being in a Black family growing up, my grandmother would cook and season everything with bell peppers, onion, garlic, cutting it up fresh and giving it that seasoning that it needs. So we don't have to, take away from our culture. So if you want to use your jerk seasoning, or whatever it is that's spice, because a lot of spices don't have any salt in them, and your food can still taste good.
Yeah, I want to go ahead and put the plug out for bell pepper and onion. As a child, we did not understand the importance of adding that to a meal, but go ahead and throw it out there, add it to some chicken or something. It really add a special touch. So thank you for that. But as you mentioned, we do season our food well as African Americans. It's just, we always talk about, cooking and our food having a better taste, right? But this weekend, right, is Juneteenth. And we're going to have people out barbecuing, we're going to have people out, just eating well, enjoying family and friends. How can we bring healthy options to the cookout without getting kicked out?
Well, at the cookout, so we know we're already grilling. So your meat is being prepared a different way. But you can have, and of course we'll have to give you some exact recipes, but you can do desserts that include fruit. So you're not doing just the cookies and the cakes and the pies. So taking those whole foods that we mentioned earlier and adding them to our recipes. You could do like your corn. So doing the corn on the cob. You could do, I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head. So beans, like we already know our beans are good fiber. So you can still have those baked beans, but maybe, like I know in my family, we do, the barbecue sauce. So doing the barbecue sauce that has less sugar in it. So we don't want to take away from our culture. It is when we're looking at the labels, choosing the items that are lower in salt or lower in sugar.
Got you. Thank you for that, because I brought sugar-free baked beans one time and they told me I wasn't invited again.
Yeah, so. No, don't do the sugar-free baked beans. Do the one with the less sugar. So that way it's not as high in sugar, it's not as processed. But no, I'm not telling you to do, I don't know how that tastes. And I see everyone, people.
It wasn't a good look, so I won't be doing that again. But guys, if you have more questions, just please pop them in and we'll get to them as we continue with the conversation. And so specifically when we think about our culture and our health, cardiovascular disease is the #1 killer in the United States. Second is cancer. And unfortunately, with these two diseases, we're always getting the short end of the stick. And that's because of health disparities, socioeconomic factors, tons of things, all the way down to molecular mechanisms, right? So how important is it, should I consider, my genetics when I'm eating every day? If I have a family history of diabetes and heart problems, should I watch what I take in?
So genetics may increase your risk. And from the research that I have read, it can be a combination of your genetics, but also your lifestyle factors. So there's not a 100% chance saying if my mother had this disease that I'm going to get it, but that may increase my risk. But so what I can do is making those changes, my lifestyle factors, to help me prevent me from developing that condition. So for example, we know that type 1 diabetes doesn't come from our mom. That comes from our pancreas stops working and it doesn't make any insulin. But we know that type 2 diabetes, people who are pre-diabetic, some of the conditions or lifestyle factors that contribute to to diabetes would be being overweight, having high blood pressure, being inactive. So there are things that we can do that can help decrease our chances of developing the conditions.
Got you. Thank you. I love how you specify reducing risk as opposed to prevention, because no matter how hard we try, sometimes it's inevitable. We will probably develop something, right? But we can take steps every day, like being physically active, eating, having a well balanced diet. I try not to say eating healthy, but having a well balanced diet, and making sure we understand our family history. And a lot of times, we don't talk about these things within our family. And so for Black people, we see health as, or talking about our health as taboo. And now that's getting a little bit more the norm. We have tons of people who are entering the workforce in fields like yours and mine, who can educate our families about things like this. And I think it's really, really important. And so this is actually one of my last questions, because I don't want to drag it out too long. But if you could give us 3 things that we can do to improve our overall nutrition, what would your top 3 be?
Top 3?
Well, how about let's do top 3, and we can add more after that.
Let's see. Top 3. I would say start where you are. And when I say start where you are, being aware of what your goals are or what you are trying to reduce the risk of. So if I know that I am just trying to be healthy and prevent things from occurring, then I know I need to eat. So making sure that you are eating throughout the day, because a lot of times some people don't eat because they think, oh, well, if I just don't eat, then that will help me from preventing things and things happening to me. But not eating is just as bad as overeating. Second, I would say, and it goes hand in hand with nutrition, is physical activity. Making sure that you are doing something to keep your body moving, so that way you can also help prevent those things from happening in relationship with your nutrition. And then one of the things we didn't talk about as much, I would say, drink water. Making sure that you're getting water into your body, because water, it helps so much with our organs, and also sometimes you can tell when you haven't drunk enough water, like, ooh, it feels good. So definitely make sure that you are drinking some water, because I don't want to get too in depth as far as like the extracellular fluid with our organs and everything, but just making sure that you are drinking some water as well.
Okay, really quick about the water. What if I love water? That's all I have is my fridge is water and unsweet tea, and I think that, and maybe some coffee creamer. But some people hate water. Like my brothers, they won't drink it for the life of them, right? But I've given them tips to kind of spice it up. So what can we put in our water to make it drinkable, or what can we use to make water more enjoyable, because we need more of it?
Right, so you can put some fruit in there to give it some flavor naturally. So if you want to cut up some strawberries, some orange slices, or cucumbers, mint leaves, whatever you need to put into your water to give it some flavor. And then see how you like your water. Some people only like water cold. Some people only like it room temperature. As I mentioned earlier, getting a cup. So my cup has a straw, so I'm not paying attention to, okay, how many bottles am I drinking? I just sip out of my cup throughout the day with the straw. So just doing things like that are just some simple ways for you to get some water. But definitely try adding some flavor to it. And then I don't know if anyone has children, and I mentioned earlier, the main group of people that I talk to on a daily basis is parents. So kids under the age of 5, and that's a struggle in their homes, is getting them to drink water. So what I'll tell them to do is take like 100% fruit juice that doesn't have the added sugar, but just the natural sugar from the fruit, and put a splash, like a teaspoon, to give it color. So for children, they like thinking they're getting juice, because when they look at it, it has a slight hint of color to it, but really they're drinking 90% of water. So that's some things that, I'm not saying, treat yourself like a child, but doing some things like that to help get in more water.
Yeah, I'll definitely say mint plus cucumber in the water. It's really refreshing, and so that's a great idea. I do that all the time. Just cut up some cucumber, cut up some mint leaves, let it steep in the fridge like 2 days or so to get the flavor in there. Drinking it one day. So that's an option. One of the things I wanted to ask is that you just mentioned about sugars and added sugars. So when we go, and there's a lot of questions coming in about fasting and stuff like that, but we'll get to that in a second. But when we think about sugars and added sugars, so when I go to Smoothie King, for example, a lot of people don't see that there are different types of things that are added within there, right? So the smoothie tastes really, really good because it's really, really sweet. But they don't tell you that they're adding stuff in there. And so I have to tell them, hey, I want this smoothie without the added stuff. And so they'll put fresh strawberries in it without, or instead of the ones with the syrup. So when we're looking at the nutrition label, or if we're ordering something, explain a little bit more about, what is added sugar and what is the natural sugar that's already in this stuff.
So the natural sugar, that's considered fructose. So that is the sugar that comes directly from the fruit. So when you're looking at your label or reading the ingredients, anything that ends in OSE is a form of sugar. So fructose is fruit sugar, lactose is milk sugar. And then you may also see high fructose corn syrup. So that will be the sugar that is more processed that you want to limit in your diet. And you see that mostly like in sodas. And then when you're looking also added sugar versus just natural sugar from whatever that food that you're eating, the added sugar is the sugar that's being added to it. So that's your table sugar or whatever sugar that they're using that they're adding to the product. So you want to look at it when you see just sugar, see what the first ingredient is on the label. So even though the item may say it has 15 grams of sugar, but then if it only says strawberry, then you know there's no added sugar. The first ingredient is strawberry. But if you look at the item and it says total sugar is 20, and then it says added sugar is 19, and you look at the ingredients and the first ingredient is sugar, then we know that's a product when there was added sugar. And then there are things that you could do. So you could use honey if you want to put that in your tea. Maple syrup, that is the natural syrup that comes from the maple tree. So you can do things like that when you want to get that sweetness or without getting the syrup that has the added sugar in it, because that's strictly maple syrup.
That makes a lot of sense. I think most times when we eat fruit, and we don't think about, the nutritional components of that. And so one of the two fruits with the most sugar is watermelon and mango. We eat too much of it. We don't think about how much sugar we're consuming. But so just understanding that, and I think it's a little daunting for people to kind of look up everything that they eat. And so having kind of a general idea of some better choices is really, really important.
Sorry, here. I just wanted to add to that when you said, looking up everything you eat can become daunting because you can get overwhelmed with it. Like you're looking at every number, every ingredient, and then you can become obsessive. Because I had one lady tell me yesterday, she actually stopped eating bananas because she was like, I put it in my app and it told me that I had a lot of sugar. And I explained to her there's different types of sugars and what the different sugars do to our body when we eat them.
Got it. Thank you for that. One of the things I want to kind of plug in is, having, in addition to understanding of having a well-balanced diet, is making sure that you're getting enough exercise. And so, unfortunately, obesity is a really big problem, and that increases our chances of having certain types of cancers or developing certain types of cancers. And so being able to have the partnership of a well-balanced diet and physical activity, and that's not in the gym every day, pumping an iron, right? But you can get 30 minutes of a brisk walk, or walking your dog, walking to your mailbox, these are things that you can do that are really, really easy. And I'm going to plug in that this weekend we're having a Black and Cancer Fitness Challenge. And so later on, either tonight or tomorrow morning, we'll be posting a video. We'll be posting a video on our social media pages to kind of give you just a simple exercise you can do at home, as well as giving you some other options that you can do. We would love for you to share your workout journeys or your fitness journeys over the weekend as we celebrate with our families, sorry, I'm reading the question. Sharing with our social media pages. One question, it says, please confirm, is eating too much fruit unhealthy because of sugar content?
So you want to keep your fruit I cannot talk this afternoon. You want to keep your fruit balanced. So of course, if you're eating a diet of just fruit sugar, then of course that can be unhealthy, or just consuming too much fruit sugar, but making sure that you're eating your 2 to 3 servings of fruit a day. So the recommendation for fruit intake is 2 to 3 servings a day.
So where can we find, if I want to know how many servings of fish and poultry, how many servings of legumes, like where can I find information like this? Or do I have to hire somebody to do all this for me? Because what if I don't have any money? So how can I find simple information that could help me have an overall better diet?
So you can look at the dietary guidelines for Americans, if you're here in America, and then you can look at the website is myplate.gov. So it does have the serving sizes and the recommendations on there for what you should have in each food group.
So for myplate.gov, that kind of gives us a general idea of what we should have like on a dinner plate, or is that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
It tells you a dinner plate and throughout the entire day. Or maybe choose myplate.gov. So
there's a question coming in about fasting. In your training, has this been heavily discussed as a type of dieting?
So yes, we have talked about fasting. So with fasting or any intermittent fasting, definitely make sure you talk to your doctor just to make sure you don't have any other health conditions. And then with fasting, making sure that if you do choose to fast within those hours, that you are consuming enough nutrients, to make sure that you are eating enough food, because you don't want to fast and then you don't eat enough and then you don't have enough nutrients for that day. So just make sure that if you do choose to fast, talk to your doctor first, make sure you don't have any underlying conditions. Of course, this is just for education purposes only, because it would have to go more into detail when it comes to fasting or intermittent fasting, but just make sure within those hours that you're eating, that you are eating enough calories and getting enough nutrients.
That's wonderful. Always contact your doctor when you're making important decisions about your health, such as intermittent fasting, because it's really important to understand if you have underlying causes or diseases. Thank you for that.
So I would want to tell someone to fast. So for example, it depends on the health condition, but if you have hormone levels that are out of whack, or if you're insulin and you're not eating enough and your sugar drops too high or too low. So that's why it's important to really make sure you don't have any conditions and talk to your doctor before you start fasting.
Okay, thank you. One of the questions about multivitamins. And so what I've heard a long time ago that multivitamins are just expensive urine, is that you're just going to urinate all of it out because you get most of it from your food if you have the right type of diet, right? Mm-hmm. So how important are multivitamins? Should we consider these? And can you speak on it from a woman's perspective, talking to Black women specifically, because that's who you work with mostly?
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to vitamins, you can get the nutrients you need from your food. But of course, when you go to your doctor and you do your lab work and you see that you are deficient in a vitamin, then that's when it would be recommended for you to supplement. So first, I would say try to get your vitamins and your nutrients that you need from your food. So because we know, for example, you mentioned Black women, we know that our vitamin D levels could be decreased if we're not getting enough vitamin D. So going outside and getting some sunlight is where you get your vitamin D from, but also you can get vitamin D from your fortified calcium in your dairy. And also you can get it from your fatty fish. Like salmon, it does have vitamin D in there as well. So first, get your vitamins and minerals that you need from your food, and then when you go to your doctor and you see that you are deficient or not as high in your levels in your vitamins that you may be lacking, then supplement with a supplement.
Got you. That makes excellent sense. Thank you. Another question is, should everyone acquire a dietitian as a part of standard healthcare? Like, is that when we think about accessibility, right? Not everyone.
That's what I was gonna say.
Even I put it in the chat, check with your primary care physician, but not everyone has that. And so, how do we get over? Number one, should we have a nutrition as a part of our standard healthcare? And number two, what do you believe are some ways that we can get around that access to healthcare that so many of the people in our population, specifically in our community, face every day?
Okay, I'm gonna answer your first question, and I'm gonna get you to repeat the second question.
Sounds good.
So should everyone have a dietitian? Yes, but realistically, most people don't know what a dietitian is. So I'm glad to be here to just bring light to a dietitian, so you can become more aware of it. And then when you mentioned about not having a doctor to refer you to a dietitian, or even know where to find a dietitian, but I think if you have access to a dietitian and you can ask your doctor, we're in healthcare facility, you can even get on the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and you can research a dietitian in your area to find someone to talk to.
Got you. Next question was, how can we overcome, or what do you think could be solutions to providing this type of service to people who normally would not have it within served populations and communities?
It went out a little bit, Harry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I missed just repeat it. I missed like a part of the question.
No worries. I was saying, what are some ways we can overcome barriers specifically for underserved communities who don't normally have access to this type of opportunity or this type of service? So if my family doesn't have insurance, what are some ways, or what do you believe are some steps that can be done, even from the government up, right, to kind of have them gain that access to these types of services?
One, I would say putting dietitian in our health departments, putting them in those areas where we know those populations who don't have insurance are, because you can go to your local, and I'm speaking from where I am, you can go to your local health department and of course get your shots and anything else that you need, but find the way and the funding to put dietitians in those areas to talk to those families, because as we mentioned earlier, the obesity rate is increasing, and there's areas where, on one part of town where there's only fast food. So I would say starting by putting us, finding ways for us to put ourselves in those areas. So in those health departments, in those community areas, and food banks. When you come in, so if you need to get food, that you can talk to a dietitian so who can help you with those choices.
Yeah. One of the questions that I thought was, actually, let me go back. There's one that says recommendations on starting and maintaining a good food journal. Now, remember how we were talking earlier about how daunting it is for people to note and report what they eat every day. Mm-hmm. And so that's really, really hard. And so what are your thoughts on having a food journal? Should people have a food journal? Or should it only be for people who are like super serious about their diet? Because that's, when I think about a food journal, I do it, right? Just simply because I'm, health conscious. But when I think about my family, they probably wouldn't have time to do all of this. So how important do you think it is to have a food journal? Or should we just be conscious mentally about what we're eating?
I think it depends on the person. I've seen and I've recommended people to log their food to help them know what they're feeling, and they can be more aware. So if you see that you logged that you had those, if you drank 10 cups of juice, you'll say, oh, wow, I drank a lot of juice today. So that'll help you be more aware of cutting back on the things that, you may not need to drink as much of, like the juice. But then for other people, using a food journal can become overwhelming, and they can become obsessed with how much water did I drink, how many servings of fruits and vegetables I have. So I would say use it. I would recommend it based off the person as I talk to them. Because I don't want someone to start journaling and they become obsessed and they start to eliminate foods from their diet because they think it's bad. Because we want to remove those negative words from it. But then we know if I do, for a person where if I do log, it's like, okay, this is helping me. Because I think I read in the chat, someone wrote earlier that they were able to log and they were aware, so they can have that accountability to help you. So it really just depends on the person. But I would definitely say yes.
Thank you for that. One of the questions, as we get closer to time, is Splenda or these artificial sugars a good substitute for sugars? And I just posted a link there on cancer.gov. And for all of you who don't know, cancer.gov is a website ran by the National Cancer Institute, which is a subdivision of the National Institutes of Health. And so what are your takes on substituting sugar for artificial sweeteners?
So I would say, read the research that Dr. Henry just put there, because everybody doesn't need artificial sugars. So artificial sugars like Splenda or Equal, they may be more recommended for a diabetic who is trying to limit the way the sugar is processed in their bodies. But if you do decide to use just regular sugar, in moderation, so how much you use. Instead of 4 tablespoons, do 2 teaspoons or something like that. So it just really depends on your health conditions, because some artificial sugars can contribute to other things. So I would say limit if possible, but it really just depends. So that's kind of like a open-ended question, because it really just depends.
Got you. Thank you. Another question is, any advice for eating health consciously while residing inside of a food desert? And so for people who don't know what a food desert is, that is a community or an area, right, that doesn't have access to whole foods or a surplus of whole foods like fruits and vegetables. What you see mostly in Black communities, unfortunately, or underserved communities where there's a high population of minorities, we don't see Paneras, we don't see salad restaurants, we don't see all of these healthier options. We see Popeyes, we see Burger King. We get our groceries from the corner store because we don't have a Publix or a Kroger. All right. So if someone is stuck in a food desert per se, number one, what are some steps that they can take? Let me take this question back. What do you think are some solutions that we can eat? How they can eat consciously while living in an area like this?
Actually, where I am today, the clinic that I am is actually in a food desert. So there is the one grocery store that may or may not have fresh fruits and vegetables, and there is the Dollar General. And then there is the food that you can get from the convenience store. So what am I supposed to do? So one of the things is the people in this town, they were able to get the Dollar General to start selling fruits and vegetables. But if you're in an area where you can't do that, then making some small changes. So when you do have to only go to the Popeyes, then get the sandwich, but not the French fries. Get it with water instead of a soda. So yeah, we may still be eating the fried chicken sandwich, but that's all I have here. So just making some substitutions. That would be like the first immediate. And then of course, going to that grocery store and say, hey, can you get more fruits and vegetables, because they can. It just depends on their stock and where they're ordering it from. But I would say the first thing I would say is making those substitutions.
Okay, one question was, how do you, I think we're going to end with this question right here. This will be the last one. How do you determine which research to accept as guidance when conflicting information is published? One of the things I'll say is that as researchers, right, we have an entire group of scientists who are focused on studying underlying mechanisms of stuff like cancer, right, when it comes to diet. So we have epidemiologists, we have molecular biologists, but I believe as a nutritionist or a dietitian, you guys look at things a little differently, right? So how do you determine which information to follow as opposed to all this misinformation that's coming out? Because now, even thinking about COVID-19, last year we was talking about all types of reasons why the virus was happening. So, but most of that stuff was not true. And so how do we pinpoint, hey, this is accurate, this is not, when it comes to nutrition and food?
And it's the same as you mentioned, Henry. I know you're a researcher, you have your set of articles that you read. So it's the same for dietitians. We have our evidence analysis library that has it in there for us. But just for someone who's out just reading, of course, you want to limit like blog posts, because anybody can read a blog post. You want to go to those websites that are accredited. So, going to the CDC, going to, for my profession, eatright.org. So that is the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, where you can see published research articles. And published articles have been peer reviewed by multiple, and they have the research to back it. So I would say the things that you will want to stay away from are those blog posts that anybody can just go out there and write, and going more for those scholarly websites.
Got you. Thank you so much. And just for to wrap up, I just want to say thank you so much. It's been extremely rewarding and insightful, all the information you've shared. So if we wanted to learn more about you, where can we go? Like, I'm actually going to plug your handles in the thing, but where can we go to learn more about what you do?
As far as what I do my day to day, of course, WIC, you can look that up. That is by the USDA. And then as far as about me and my business and just wanting to help as far as nutrition, I'm Nutrition by Love. I am on Instagram and Facebook. So definitely I would say just take advantage of finding a dietitian in your area, or just when you're looking up nutrition information, look to see that it says dietitian, because one of the things I didn't mention earlier, anyone can call themselves a nutritionist. You can go online and take a quick little Google search, and people work in their gyms and stop calling themselves a nutritionist. But a dietitian, they have the science background. So we took the science classes, we did the our license exam. So just make sure the information that you're getting it from is from a credible source.
Your keyword is credible here. Thank you so much, LaTrice. It's been amazing. I kind of want to plug in some of the events that we have on. So tomorrow we are having Black in Cancer, Get Fit with Black in Cancer, and we'll be dropping a video of a short exercise workout you can do at home with no equipment. Also, we want you to share your walks and your trips to the gym, your walks with your dogs and your family, and with all of our social media handles on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, to get out and get moving. Also, want to plug in Monday's event. On next Monday, we'll be having a prostate cancer panel talking about the importance of getting checked, the importance of getting screened, and how important as Black men it is to follow and know our family history of prostate cancer. So thank you so much for joining us, everyone. This is the end of our session, and we hope that you can join us for the rest of the events. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, LaTrice.